Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the third devotional of our Holy Week, where we started on Communion Thursday, and then last night we had Good Friday, where we talked about the crucifixion, and tonight we're going to talk about something that doesn't get a lot of attention, but I feel like it's very important. Just in case you're new to this, my name is Pastor Nick Dalton. I'm the senior pastor of the Jefferson Church, and I'm happy to be able to present this for our church family, but also those that are outside and wanting to kind of see what the church is all about. I thought about what would be a good title for tonight, and as I've been looking through social media, and as we've all been going through social media a lot more than usual, I saw a title that I had never seen before, and I wanted to use it for tonight. That this Saturday, we could call it Silent Saturday, because silence was the key. Silence was the theme of this Saturday, because as you well know, the day before, Jesus had been crucified. He had been pierced in the side with a spear, and the Bible says in the latter part of the Gospels that Jesus was actually taken down by a man named Joseph of Arimathea, and actually the book of John mentions that Nicodemus was also part of that crowd. Another book, I believe it's Luke, mentions that Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, was there as well. All of these people taking Jesus down from the cross, wrapping him in the ceremonial Jewish wrapping, and placing him in Joseph of Arimathea's family tomb. All this was done on Friday evening before the Saturday. Now, some of the questions that I've been asked before would be, okay, if this was Joseph's family tomb, then his family couldn't use it anymore, right? And I guess if you think of the way that we think of burials and graveyards and things like that, if you buy a plot of land but you let somebody else get buried in that plot, then you don't get to use it anymore. That's not the way Jewish burial actually worked. Most traditional tombs from back in Jesus' day actually had windows that would allow ventilation from inside the tomb to go outside into the open air. And this was because they would usually allow the body to be wrapped and stay in the tomb for up to a year. Then at that time, somebody, members from the family would go in and get the bones, the remains from that person, and actually place them in a box. So you were not, you didn't stay in that tomb for the rest of, as long as people wanted to put up with you, or just like the graves of today. You were actually placed in the tomb for about a year, and then your remains were placed in a box. So Joseph, this was his family tomb, and he was going to get the use of that tomb back for sure. It actually also says that the religious leaders went to Pilate, as well as Joseph did, but the religious leaders went and asked if guards could be placed outside the door of the tomb of Jesus, just so the disciples wouldn't be tempted to steal him and then just say, oh, well, he's risen from the dead. And so they had guards outside of that tomb. We also need to notice that this Saturday was a Sabbath, so therefore there was no work being done whatsoever. So literally, the body of Jesus was laying in the tomb for Saturday completely by himself. Nobody disturbed him. Nobody was there. He was completely, or his body, I should say, was completely by itself. Now, there's some speculation as to what happened to the spirit of Jesus after he left the cross, or after he gave up the ghost. And some people believe that Jesus then entered into hell and actually took the keys to death, hell, and the grave from the enemy. I like this story personally, because I like to think that the enemy is so weak that he does not even have the keys to his own house. That's how powerless he is. I like that version. There's some speculation that might not have happened, although there is a verse in, I believe in 1 Peter, to kind of back up the fact that he went down there to basically triumphantly announce that he had defeated death. But the second thing that we can obviously see that from what Jesus said on the cross was he told the thief, today I will be with you, you will be with me in paradise. And so Jesus, not being a liar, probably as his spirit left his body, he was in paradise with that thief. But as I thought about this phrase, Silent Saturday, I want to read a verse of a passage of scripture and then we'll be done. John chapter 19, starting in verse 38. It says, later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. We've already explained this. Now Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, because he feared the Jewish leaders. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. He was accompanied by Nicodemus, there he is, the man who earlier had visited Jesus at night. Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds. Taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it with spices and strips of linen. This was in accordance with Jewish burial customs. At the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, Friday, and since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. So as they buried Jesus and they left because it was a Sabbath and they weren't allowed to work, the body of Jesus stayed there. There was silence. I would imagine that the disciples were not very silent, though. I would imagine they were mourning. I would imagine they were crying and very, very upset and probably beside themselves, hiding, not only for fear of being killed by the Jewish leaders. I mean, the Jewish leaders and the Romans just killed their biggest leader. But they were scared of not only dying themselves, but also, could you imagine this man that did miracles? This man that fed the 5,000, this man that opened blinded eyes, he raised people from the dead himself, and you were there to witness it. These 12 disciples were 11 by now. Judas was already gone, but these 11 disciples are thinking, wait, I saw Jesus do all these things, and he couldn't even save himself. Could you imagine maybe the doubt that they had? Could you imagine maybe the frustration that they had? That in this silence, that's oftentimes when fear, anxiety, frustration, it's when our mind, it's when we begin to talk to ourselves. I love what Chanel's grandmother's always said. She says, it's okay to talk to yourself just as long as you don't answer yourself. But can you imagine what these disciples are thinking? And it kind of brings a song to mind that we sing a lot now, and it's Waymaker. And it's the idea that the bridge says, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. That even though Saturday was silent, God was still working his plan in the background. And that's what you have to see for your life. That no matter what you're going through, God has a plan, and it's still processing, it's still going, the cogs are still turning on in the background. So listen to me. You could be going through a divorce right now. You could be going through a silent Saturday of your life, a season of silent Saturday in your life. You could be going through bankruptcy. You could be losing a job. You could have a child that's estranged and they're no longer living with you anymore. You could be possibly going through a divorce in your house. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be going on right now that you just feel like, okay, all the plans of God, they must have stopped. There's no way that this was a part of God's plan for me. And to an extent, you're right. It wasn't a part of God's plan for you to get divorced or a part, but God knew that this was going to happen. And configuring all that in, the plan is still going on in the background. That even when you don't feel it, he's working. Even when you don't see it, he's working. I kind of attribute it to Christmas. You know, as a kid, we all got excited about Christmas. We all got excited about birthdays, and we didn't know exactly how, but somehow when we had a wish list or a hope list and we sent it off to Santa Claus, or we sent it off to our parents or whoever it was, maybe for our birthdays, we sent a wish list off to Santa Claus for Christmas. You know, somehow those presents got there. Someone worked really, really hard to get those presents where they should be. And in a really kind of, I guess, kid sort of way, that's a way to look at it. That even though nothing's going on in front of you, and even though it seems like nothing is happening, God is really working his masterpiece and his magic. Matter of fact, I would make the argument that it's the silent moments of your life that truly bring the greatest power and the greatest source of strength. Think about a seed. When you put a seed, and no matter what plant it is, when you put a seed in the ground, the majority of the gestation of that seed, the beginnings of that plant, the embryo of it, actually are all done underground. You don't see the growth of the plant until it sprouts forth just a little bitty shoot out of the ground. Great, mighty oak trees start off with just a little bitty shoot. And I'm telling you, that's where you are right now. If you feel like you're in this silent Saturday mode, You are just getting in position for a breakthrough. God is placing you in position for the next level of what He has for you in your life. If you'll stay with Him, if you'll trust in Him, remember, Jesus always knew the Father was with Him. If you trust in Him and know that no matter what I'm going through, no matter the silence, no matter the issues that are surrounding me right now, and I feel so alone, number one, you are never alone. God is always with you. And number two, He does His best work in the background. That even when you don't feel it, He's working. And even when you don't see it, He's working. Listen, tomorrow is Resurrection Sunday. Right now, if you can imagine the biblical narrative, everybody's silent, everybody's sad, everybody's upset. But imagine what's about to happen in only a few short hours. As you sleep tonight, I want you to put yourselves in their shoes. Everything was lost, everything was gone, but imagine what hindsight does for us now. That in just a few short hours, everything was going to be made right. God bless you guys. I'll see you Easter Sunday at 8:30 a.m. at the Jefferson Church Online.